Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I prepare for my Colorado Trail backpacking trips. How many miles I'm going to do in a day, where I'm going to camp, where reliable water sources are, and things like that. Some of the tools that I use to plan include some analog and some digital. If you're interested, stay tuned. So one of the first places that I would go to find information and resources to help me prepare to backpack the Colorado Trail would be the Colorado Trail Foundation's website. The foundation is who is responsible for maintaining the trail, and they do a fantastic job, so I would highly recommend, if you are able to contribute somehow, either through trail work if you live in Colorado or through donations. If you go to their website and then click on blog up here, I've preloaded these since my hotspot is slow right now. You'll come to the blog page, which they, especially around time for the trail to get busy, they start posting more often. They've recently posted about the Waterton Canyon weekday closure in May, which happens annually, and so they just post reminders about these closures. But down here, this would be what I'm most interested in right now to help me prepare, and that would be segment snowpack. This particular post was written on May 3rd of this year, and it talks about passable norms. So if we just click on this post, you can see that it talks about average melt-off dates. And so if you want to get your average melt-off date for whatever segments that you plan to hike, you can look down here for those segments and see that it will tell you the average snowpack melt-off dates. What they consider passable is basically you can hike safely through that section. You may be post-holing a little bit, but for the most part, it's a safe passage. So if we come down here and look, the segments that I'll be doing are 22 through 28. And so down here, it shows that those segments are passable in early July. If you scroll down here some more, it says here is a CTF webpage with a bit more snowpack info. Basically what this is, it's a system of measuring snowpack that is used by water managers to find out how much water is going to be available to fill reservoirs in the spring. So this has become a great resource for skiers and backpackers and other backcountry recreators. So if you look down here, it says the rules of thumb are this first bullet point is for the northern section of the trail, and I'm doing the southern section, so I'm just going to come down here and read this. About 2 weeks after the Red Mountain Pass Snotel registers 0 inches of snowpack, the high points along the south half of the CT, including segments 21 to 27, become passable. So because this applies to me, since I'm starting in 22 and doing 22 through 28, I am going to follow this. So I'm going to come down here and find Red Mountain Pass, which is right here, and I'm going to click on its link, and that takes me over here to this page, which tells me the last reported date was May 9th, and currently the snow depth is 28 inches, which sadly isn't that much, and it's melting fairly quickly, so probably the section that I'll be hiking will be passable in early July. I'm not on social media anymore, but back when I was, the Facebook groups were very useful. So that's another thing to check out. If you are on Facebook, do a search for the Colorado Trail class of, and then whatever year it is. You should be able to find groups for that particular year's class of thru hikers, and there's just tremendous amounts of information in those groups as well. So those are a couple of websites that I regularly use to check snow conditions and other situations that might affect my planning. So the Colorado Trail Foundation website is also where you will go to purchase the data book, and I am going to talk about that later. But if you click on shop, click on guides, books, and maps, This is what I would consider mandatory. It's the data book. So this is the guidebook. This is the data book. It's a pocket-sized, lightweight book that you can take on the trail. I would highly recommend taking on the trail. I'll show you this later, but it basically shows you where all the water sources are, where potential campsites are, and gives you a list of waypoints that help you along the trail. So I'm in my Garmin account, the web version. On this topo map, you can actually see the trail, this little dashed line here. And so I'm following it, and I am creating my own route, which will then get synced to my Garmin Inreach, so that if I should need it, just as an emergency safety precaution, if I should get lost and I need to find my way back to the trail, then I will have this on my Inreach device. This is a section of trail that I might possibly need guidance on, because the campground where I'm going to be resupplying is not exactly right on the Colorado Trail, and so I want to make sure that I have a track going to that campground. So there's the campground, but the trail keeps going, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish the actual trail, and then I'm going to come back and do the side trail to the campground. I am resupplying at this campground right here, and so I'm going to do a track that's leading from this trail, from the Colorado Trail, over here to the campground. It looks like I'm going to just get on this little road here, and we'll call that Mullis Lake Campground Resupply Point. And we're going to make that one yellow because I've been making side trips in yellow. Yeah, so now we have that done. Should be easy enough to find so we don't miss our resupply. But this is one of the maps that I use to do my trip planning, and part of it is because I can really get up close and see things that you don't necessarily see on a regular topo map. So I like the satellite view, and I use this map primarily because it's where I create my tracks to send to my Garmin Inreach device. You can look around and you can see the peaks that are around you that you're going to be walking by, and you can see the elevations, and you can see other trails in here. So this is one map that I use to help me prepare for my trips. This is, again, the Garmin Explore. From inside the Garmin app, if you own a Garmin Inreach device, this is what the map looks like. You can get in there and you can share this map with family and friends. They can see where you are if you're tracking from your device. They can message you through this map, and you can password protect it. I love the Garmin products, and the tools that they offer are really fantastic for backcountry exploring. Okay, so I wanted to show you what the Garmin Explore app looks like on the phone. And so if you go into the app and you click on Library, it shows you all of your tracks, all of your trails that you have, and I have mine organized here into the Colorado Trail Finish, so I can click on that. And it shows me all of the tracks that I've created on the computer. I wanted to try to keep it pretty clean and easy for me to read out there, so I only have the segments that I have left to hike. There is a resupply that I'm planning to do at Mullis Lake Campground, and that campground is not on the Colorado Trail exactly. It's a side trail that goes off to this campground. And if I have a resupply box there, I'm going to need to know where the trail junction is to take to get to that point, just in case it's not clear out there. And since I haven't hiked this before, I don't know if it's clear, if there's a sign or if you can see it. I mean, it looks pretty close. I'll probably be able to see the lake. But to just have this trail marked, I can get this out and make sure that I don't miss this trail junction, which is marked in yellow, to go to the campground and pick up my resupply. This is what the phone app looks like that pairs with my Garmin Inreach. So another app that I use to help determine where water sources are, where the elevation gain is, where the trail is, if I happen to get lost or need to double check things if it's not clear where the trail goes, is an app called Far Out, and it used to be called Gut Hook. And this is an app that has a number of trails within it, and you purchase the trail that you want to hike. So I purchased the entire Colorado Trail some time ago, and I've got it on here. If you click on the guide, that's where your trails that you've purchased are going to be listed. You can purchase trails in the store. You can open each one by clicking on the open, and it'll bring you over to your guide here. And once you're inside this, you can click on the 3 bars here, and it'll give you the list of basically all of the waypoints that they've entered. So I'm getting ready to start on segment 22, so we'll jump to segment 22 here, and I can click on that, and it's going to bring me to this page. On this page, it's going to give you all the basic information. So it's 422.2 miles from where I am right now in Lubbock, Texas. It is mile 357.8 of 500 whatever. That's the mileage from Denver going south. And that particular starting point is at 10,906 feet elevation. Then if you come down here, you've got even more information. Spring Creek Pass, that is the segment 22 starting point at Colorado State Highway 149. It gives you some information about that point. And then if you scroll down here, at each waypoint that you click on, it allows users to leave comments. And this is incredibly useful, especially for water, because the app will give you, basically, it'll tell you where the water sources are, but, only people who have been there and seen it firsthand will know whether that water source is flowing or whether it's dry or whether it's trickling. And so users will get onto this app and leave comments for other hikers so that they know. So you can do a number of things from this page too. You can leave a public comment. You can show on elevation, and it'll give you an elevation map. Or you can go back and click on show on map. If you click on the locator icon that's down in the bottom right of the screen to the left of GPS, that will give you your current location. I'm not going to touch it right now because I'm all the way in Lubbock, Texas, and it'll throw the whole map off. But if you're on the trail, it's a good way just to double check that you're still on the trail as you're hiking. The other thing I do quite a bit is I'll click on these various waypoints, which are the brown circles or black circles, whatever. I'll click on those and bring up the information page again. So again, you can read all of the public comments for that waypoint, nice flat camping spot. Stuff like that is really useful in helping you determine where to camp, where to get water. So here's another waypoint, which is water. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to read the public comments, follow the water up off the road, and there's big pools that are easy to fill from. So that's really beneficial information. Still flowing. It's important to read the date of when the comments were made because water sources can change pretty quickly out there. That is the most beneficial feature, I think, in this app for me, is just checking water sources and double checking once in a while that you are, in fact, still on the trail if it becomes uncertain, if it becomes questionable at any time. So that's pretty much it for this app. This is the app Far Out, formerly named Guthook. And again, you can load any trail that it has. If you click on Store, you can see all of these trails that the app has, and you just purchase whichever trail that you're going to hike and then download it to your phone, and it's on there. So very useful app, highly recommend. So these are the maps that I use to prepare for my backpacking trips on the Colorado Trail. The first two are Nat Geo map booklets, and they're divided up into the northern section of the Colorado Trail and the southern section of the Colorado Trail. And I believe there's also a third booklet that covers the collegiate loop. So if you open these books up, the first thing you're going to see is the map legend and a map of the entire Colorado Trail. The yellow squares here are indicating which map grids are included in this booklet. So if you look in the other booklet on the first page, these northern grids are highlighted, and those are the map grids that are included in this booklet. So this is the northern section, this is the southern section. What I am getting ready to do is segment 22, which is right here. The numbers of the map grids, those are actually page numbers. So this is segment 22's start right here. You can see quite a bit of detail on these Nat Geo topo maps. So for example, I like to know the names of the peaks when I pass, and so you can see on this one especially, it gives you the names of just about everything. Green, of course, is vegetation, so if you look at this and you see a bunch of green, that is national forest area usually. Blue is water, so all of these blue squiggly lines are creeks and rivers. There's a lake up here. Here you would have national forest boundary, and up here you would have wilderness boundary. What's really important to me specifically when I'm planning are the brown features, which is terrain features. If you wanted to be safe, or if you just want to know more about where you are, then I would highly recommend the Nat Geo maps. You could potentially hike the entire trail with just this book and be fine. The beginning of this book starts with segment 1, and again you have a map legend. These maps, by the way, are very minimal. They don't give you much. So at the beginning, there's a list of resupply places for those who are through hiking, or those who are segment hiking longer sections and may need a resupply, like I will be. And then it starts with segment 1, Waterton Canyon Trailhead, and it goes through all the way to segment 28. So I'm getting ready to do segment 22. One of the first things I'll do as I'm preparing for a trip is I'll go through here and actually figure out the elevation gain or loss between these waypoints that are listed. Now, this isn't an exact science, so for example, right here I have that there's going to be a 478-foot elevation gain between the start and mile 2.7. You can come down here and look at the elevation chart here and see between 0 and 2.7 is somewhere right in there. You can see how the trail actually fluctuates up and down in elevation. This helps me determine where I'm going to camp, because if I have several 400, 600 feet climbs in a row, then I'm probably not going to want to keep climbing. I'm probably going to want to camp and then get some rest and start climbing again the next day. The uphills take time for me, and so I have to take that into consideration. This is the high point of the entire CT, 13,271 feet. I know looking at this, 391, 380, 460, 115, 207, this is gonna take me a long time. So if I'm wanting to not be at that high point in the middle of the afternoon where it might storm, then this tells me, all of this climbing tells me that I'm going to need to leave really early in the morning to get to this point, make some photos, whatever, and then start descending before any afternoon storms might come in. So that's why elevation is important for me as I'm planning. It tells me how early I need to leave. It tells me where might be a good place to camp. And I'm also looking at water sources as I'm planning. So these over here in the symbol column, the blue cups represent, and the wavy lines, the empty cups with the exclamation point, all of those refer to water sources. It also shows you where potential campsites are. So this is good to know, because if it wasn't marked, there are a lot of times where you're climbing and you're probably not going to find a flat space to put a tent. And also you'll notice that I will go through the Far Out app, which I mentioned earlier. I'll make notes in the book based on people's comments. What I'm looking for when I'm trying to determine where to camp is, for starter, if there's a tent icon, that tells me that it's a relatively flat space, that it's identified as a potential campsite. Sometimes there are campsites in water that fall like 400 or 500 feet off the trail, and I'm going to try to avoid those, because I know at the end of the day I'm not going to want to go an additional 500 feet down or back up to camp or get water. If there is really heavy sign of wildlife activity, then I may decide to keep going and find a different site. You know, the likelihood that you're going to encounter some type of wildlife increases if you're by a body of water, because these animals rely on those water sources as much as we do when we're out there. When I'm out there, I'm also looking for widowmakers, which are dead trees that could potentially fall in the middle of the night and land on my tent. I hope that helps a little bit as far as giving you an idea of how I plan. If you have any questions about any of this, leave them in the comments and I'm happy to answer them.